Hello everyone, this is Joshua Smith of Apollo's Artifacts. It is 2019. This is going to be another episode where I focus on supplemental information that's related to the McMartin Preschool case. In this episode, we're going to look into the 5 deaths that were at least in some way tangentially associated with the case, and we'll take an in-depth look at one of those related to the murder of Karen Klaas, a murder that's actually recently been solved. So I'll jump right into it. In 1976, a mother of 2, Karen Klaas, was murdered after she dropped off her youngest child at the McMartin Preschool. She had previously been married to Bill Medley of the Righteous Brothers. Her new husband, Gerald Klaas, later died in Oregon in the 1980s as he drove off a cliff, and this was reported as a suicide. In 1985, Robert Hamill Winkler was found dead of an overdose. He was referred to by many children and identified in photographs as the Wolf Man. He was supposed to testify in the McMartin trial. He was also a defendant in another possibly related pedophile case related to a babysitting service. 1986, Judy Johnson, the original person to report injuries to her child to doctors, and then later the doctors reported that to police, died of liver failure. In 1987, an investigator hired by the defense team of the McMartin case, Paul Bynum, committed suicide prior to his day in court to testify. So that is how I get the count of a minimum of 3 deaths related to the trial and as many as 5 basically tangentially related in some manner. So now to the article from Easy Reader News, published February of 2017 by Ryan McDonald, titled, Solved, DNA Evidence Helps Unravel the Killing of Karen Klaas, a Hermosa Beach Mystery 41 Years in the Making. On January 30, 1976, Hermosa Beach resident Kathy Bergstrom was working as a teacher. After the school day ended, she returned to her North Hermosa home when she noticed a man pacing up and down the street. The man was a detective with the Hermosa Beach Police Department. The article continues, He told me he had gone to my house and the door had been unlocked, Bergstrom recalled. I said, why would I lock it? And he said, don't you know what's happened? Bergstrom did not, but she and the rest of the town soon would. Just up the block, police had cordoned off a grisly crime scene. Karen Klaas, then 32, had been attacked and strangled in her 24th place home. Klaas was taken to a hospital and survived in a coma for 5 days until perishing February 4. For 41 years, the case stood as one of the greatest unsolved crimes of Hermosa. The mystery was lifted Monday with an announcement from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. A cold case team had used the latest DNA technology to pinpoint Klaas's killer. But there would be no manhunt or arrest, no tear-filled trial. The man named by genetic evidence, Kenneth Eugene Troyer, died more than 30 years ago in a shootout with police in Orange County. Various aspects of the case lent it the feel of tabloid material. Klaas was the ex-wife of Bill Medley, of blue-eyed soul duet The Righteous Brothers. Over the years, various rumors had linked the Klaas slaying to the McMartin Preschool scandal of the 1980s. The case was also a thread that linked together dozens of officers who had passed through the HBPD over the years. The failure to solve it was an unresolved note ringing discordantly in the memory of many otherwise satisfactory careers. Tom Cray, a retired HBPD officer and one of the detectives originally assigned to the case, said that the Klaas killing nagged at cops new and old. Quote, that was the one case that bugged all of us. I always thought, I sure hope they get this solved while we're on this side of the dirt. His partner on the case, Detective Paul Bynum, died in 1987. If Paul is up there, this is going to make him happy. And of course, this is the same Paul Bynum who was involved in the McMartin trial, was scheduled to testify, and then supposedly committed suicide the day before his testimony, despite the fact that everyone in his family said that he was very happy and looking forward to the future. It wasn't like Karen Klaas to be late. Noel Castle, a Hermosa resident who lived next door to Klaas at the time of the killing, recalls that Klaas would come by for coffee every morning after she dropped off her youngest son, Karen Klaas, at McMartin Preschool. Castle thought something was up when Klaas did not arrive for coffee, so she went to check on her. As she always did, Castle approached Klaas's home from the back, where there was a sliding glass door. She saw freshly baked cookies on the kitchen counter. She also saw crutches on the floor, so she presumed Klaas was home. Klaas had broken her leg 2 weeks prior after falling while attempting to skateboard, forcing them to cancel a planned ski trip. Castle called out, "Karen, are you home?" Then she and Sue Croft, another neighborhood resident who typically joined them for coffee, went around to the front of the house and knocked on the door. A man with woolly brown hair opened the door. The combination of not recognizing the man and his imposing appearance made them fearful, and so they fled. "We ran across the street to a fireman's house. I knew he had a gun, but he wasn't home. There wasn't a man home on the entire street," Castle said, and they called 911. And I'm going to skip a significant amount of material in this. This article is about 15 pages in my printed version. I'll link it below so you can check it out. But I'll continue here. Quote, "Detectives would later put Castle under hypnosis to draw out a detailed description of the suspect. The information she provided led to the creation of a suspect bust, a three-dimensional version of the facial composite created by police sketch artists. Dukakis said that the Klaas case was the first case in California where the sculpture method, now rare, was used. As time wore on, leads trickled in. Thompson estimated that a new angle would emerge every 3 or 4 years. Perhaps the most notable of these was a coincidence-strewn theory connecting Klaas's killing to the McMartin Preschool scandal, a lurid case involving alleged satanic rituals and child abuse that for a time was the most expensive criminal prosecution in U.S. history. In addition to the fact that Klaas was killed shortly after dropping off her son at the school, her husband at the time of the killing, Damien's father, died shortly after the first arrest in the McMartin case, falling to his death after driving off the side of a mountain in Oregon. And the accountant who handled the taxes for the Orange County firefighters suspected by Bynum also did the books for the preschool. At one point, Robert Philibosian, the Los Angeles County District Attorney at the time of the McMartin investigation, announced that he was looking into the Klaas case for potential connections. However, thanks to the work of the officers and deputies who responded back in 1976, the cold case unit had a DNA sample to work with, taken from a towel in the Klaas home. But in order for the sample to be useful, it had to have a match in a database. And after the first comparison with the database maintained by the FBI, it failed to find a counterpart. Jumping ahead again, Detective Sergeant Tom Harris of the Sheriff's Homicide Bureau joined the case in 2008. He and partner Detective Larry Brandenburg went beyond sorting through DNA, he said, relying on a combination of every type of evidence. Tips came in over the years, and they kept in touch with retired HBPD officers. "We were trying to identify people. We re-interviewed witnesses. We traveled the country," Harris said. They first ran a familial DNA search in 2011, again failing to find a match. But around the time of the first familial search, a relative of Troyer was convicted of a, quote, qualifying crime. Following the relative's incarceration, the sample was collected and placed in the database. The familial match was made from a close male relative, with only first-degree separation from Troyer himself. Due to privacy restrictions in state law, they could not disclose who had provided the sample. Once the match was found, the case became a matter of eliminating suspects, including the relative of Troyer's, from whom the matching sample in the database was originally obtained. Troyer had escaped from the California Men's Colony State Prison in San Luis Obispo on January 30, 1982, 6 years to the day after the attack on Karen Klaas, where he was serving a sentence for burglary. He then traveled to Orange County and went on a crime spree. According to a news brief in the Los Angeles Times, March 11, 1982, Troyer got into a fight with a Huntington Beach police officer. An officer confronted Troyer, believing that Troyer had raped a woman. Troyer pulled a gun in the ensuing scuffle and may have been wounded. He escaped into a nearby home following the fight. Troyer was then killed 3 days later in Santa Ana. According to Harris, officers from departments in Anaheim, Santa Ana, and elsewhere in Orange County formed a task force to look for Troyer and got a tip about his whereabouts. According to a subsequent story in the Times, Troyer led police on a high-speed chase before crashing into a tree in Santa Ana. He was hit by officer gunfire after making a, quote, furtive move while exiting the vehicle and subsequently died in hospital March 14, 1982. And so they had a DNA match from this individual. As I said previously, I will link this article below. I will also link the overall supplementary material for the Satanic Panic episodes that I've been putting together, plus the Satanic Panic series itself. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.